Welcome back to Where in the World, where we have real conversations with young professionals about life and career, all while attempting to guess where in the world they are. We'll learn something new about our guests and what it's like to forge your own career path as a young professional. And when we say young, we're really talking about a state of mind. You'll learn by watching this web series that your career will take many dips and turns over time. And just when you think you've made it, you might have to scrap it all and start from scratch. Sometimes that's the way it goes. Ride the tide. I'm your host, Clary Johnson, and I'm joined today by Kenneth Groom from Charlotte, North Carolina. He's a customer success manager at IMPLAN and founder of Beyond Normal Media, where they highlight businesses that are beyond normal and empower Black startup founders by highlighting their journeys. The big, hairy question we're asking today is, how can young professionals make better investments today for tomorrow? But before we jump in, let's do some housekeeping. This is a mini web series game show. The questions will range from standard interview like questions to more personal questions about our guests' careers. You'll notice we're both here today with different backgrounds. In between questions, we'll each have an opportunity to guess where in the world the other person is. The first person to guess correctly wins. Our guests can ask for clues along the way, and our audience can help out by asking for clues in the chat. So please join me in welcoming Kenny. Hey, Kenny.
How's it going? Thank you for
Good.
having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for joining us today. This is the final episode of the season. It's kind of mind blowing. We're about 30 episodes in now. And I'm so happy to be ending on this conversation. The topic of investing and creating multiple streams of income is a topic that I am passionate about. I love trading in the stock market. I'm also a business owner. And if you were to give me uh, a day and just ask me just like kind of how do I want to spend the day, I literally could spend the entire day staring at stock charts. Like that's how much I love it. And we've talked about wealth on the show, but today we're going to talk about one way of building wealth, and that is through investments. You have a long history in finance, and so I'm looking forward to hearing more about your background and your valuable perspective on this topic. So, let's get started with our most commonly asked interview question. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Appreciate you giving me this platform, Clary. Um, I'm just excited to answer that question, right? Telling you all a little bit about myself. And like Clary said, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been in the Charlotte area since 2006. The city has been amazing to me. I came to this city for education, and so I went to UNC Charlotte, go Niners, majored in mathematics, and didn't quite know what I wanted to do after college. A common kind of thought that people have is, hey, you majored in math, you're going to be a math teacher. I knew I was not going to be a math teacher. So I had to look, what was in the market. And one of the opportunities I saw, Charlotte is a really big hub for financial services. And from many standpoints, it is like the East Coast or the Southeast hub for a lot of banks. And so all the banks that we all essentially have an account with, for the most part, they have some presence here in the Charlotte market. And so, no surprise, my skill set, my quantitative degree in mathematics, allowed me to get a job at one of the many financial institutions in Charlotte, really starting out as an analyst. So, working in the analytics department, a whole host of lending products that we all know and use. From auto loans to the credit cards that we all have in our wallet. I got the opportunity to be on the number side, the analytics side, actually looking at, what customers are spending, what types of offers resonate with them, doing tasks such as looking at credit reports. So I started out my career deep in the weeds, looking at Experian and TransUnion credit reports just to see what trends, what customer profiles were sticking out, and seeing, how we can use the data and ultimately to offer people a different host of credit products, again, from auto loans to the credit cards we all have in our wallet. That that got me some amazing opportunities. And so I tell folks, um, most of the businesses in America want to offer some sort of a credit product to their consumers, but they don't want to necessarily be in the business of being a bank. And so they'll partner with some of the bigger financial institutions to be that lending partner and to offer that service to their customers. So I got to work with some really, really huge retailers, such as like local to Charlotte. We have Lowe's, we have Belk, and so those were just some of the retailers that I actually got to apply my skills with, my skill set to, knowing analytics, and then transitioning over to managing customer relationships, and more so just making sure that the customer and then the clients, in this case being the retailer, are getting the most from those types of products.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing that. It sounds like your career really has kind of built and grown and developed on itself over time, which I find really, really cool. And just as a disclaimer, y'all, we're going to be talking about investments, but none of this is intended to be advice. I highly recommend go talk to your accountant, go talk to a finance professional if you are considering ways of maximizing your investments. But as you were talking, Kenny, I realized that I don't have a question about credit scores in our conversation today. So I think I'm going to sneak one in because it's a really important conversation to have. I know that at a young age, I learned about investing and I learned about saving. You know, I had a piggy bank like many of us, and I think, you know, I'm a Taurus, so I think I'm more so on the, you know, the cautious side when it comes to making any big leaps or big changes with my money. And so for a long time, I've been able to really maintain a positive credit score, right? Even though I've had periods where I've had lots and lots of debt, credit card debt, and that was something you actually mentioned. So I've had a lot of credit card debt, student loan debt. I had an auto loan at one point that's now paid off, but um, it got really tough at one point in my life to balance all of these different all these bills that I had to pay and still lead a fulfilling life with being able to go out with friends and being able to enjoy takeout food and being able to go to a movie and pay for that experience without having to worry about where my next check was going to come from. And so I think it's going to be really important for us to talk a little bit more about the implications of credit card debt, the implications of really maintaining a positive credit score, because what I've learned is that that can really open doors for you in terms of when you're looking to invest and you're looking to establish your future. But it can also be something, it can be a hurdle, right? If we don't manage our credit properly. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But before we get into it, I want to guess where in the world you are, because this doesn't look like any place we've ever been before on this show. Okay. So I'm gonna describe briefly what I'm seeing for our listeners who may not necessarily be watching the show, but maybe, yeah, thank you. Thanks, Kenny. So what I'm seeing is it looks like a basketball court. It's a yellow basketball court. There looks like a maple leaf in the center, which reminds me of Canada. And it's like a black emblem in the middle with a white maple leaf. There's it's a yellow basketball court. There is a hoop obviously in the back. On each side of this court, there are some bleachers. It's actually giving me a little bit of PTSD right now because I remember how cold bleachers are. I haven't sat on a bleacher in the longest time. I think maybe the last time was my nephew's graduation. And then we have some tall light posts on flanking either side of the basketball court in the bleachers. We've got some trees. It looks like an autumn situation because there are definitely some leaves on the trees, but there are several trees that are bare bone. So I definitely want to say we are in a place that has seasons. So either on the East Coast or the Midwest. And then there's a tall building in the background. It's a brown building with lots and lots of units. I'm gonna be honest. It looks like you're in the hood. So, um, I am going to guess that you are in North Carolina.
No.
Okay. I had to guess the most obvious thing, but I have some other ideas. Can you
Okay.
give me a clue about this place?
My clue is that this place is cold most of the year.
Yep, 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 yep. Okay, so I'll sit with that. That's a great clue. Thank you, Kenny. And then I will turn it over to you.
All right. I am seeing a city on the coast. It looks like there is a mix of modern, a little bit of modern buildings, but mostly buildings that were not built anytime during our lifetime. I see some religious buildings as well, and there looks to be mountains surrounding the city. Um, at least on three sides of it, I want to say. So it's giving me mm, a little bit of trees. So is this place is in the Mediterranean, I feel like.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is mm, mm, this is tricky
Sure, sure.
because it can.
Um, can I give you a clue
Yeah, give me a
about this
clue.
place? Okay, okay, cool, cool, cool. Okay, so this place um has a booming tourism industry and high occupancy rates for short-term rental properties during peak season.
Okay.
Under normal circumstances, it receives 3 times as many tourists as its population size every year.
Mm, so I just have to do the state or no, the country or the city.
Um, I would say country. You could say the country, but I
Uh,
am in a specific city within that country or a specific place.
I wonder,
Mhm.
is this? I don't think that. I think that's too far. Is this Cyprus?
We are not in Cyprus. However, let me see where Cyprus is in relation to us.
The waters got me thinking for some reason. I don't know why.
Yes, yes, Cyprus. And when you say Cyprus, spell that for me.
CYPRUS.
CYPRUS, correct? Okay. Cyprus is in the Middle East, southeast of Greece. So let's see how close are we from to Greece? You're close. You're warm.
Okay.
You're warm. We
All
are
right.
not Cyprus, but we are of north of Cyprus.
Oh, I
Yeah,
get another clue. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, on to the next question. So, can you talk a little bit about assets? What are assets? Why should we be considering investing in assets?
So assets is going to be anything that you deem of value, right? And so we think about the assets that we all want to accumulate. That could be anything from a house to things like, I guess, like gold and silver. Some folks may say the debt is an asset in certain ways. I think I wouldn't necessarily say debt is an asset, but having the availability, like having credit lines and things like that, in terms of investing, can be seen as an asset as well. But it's really ultimately going to be anything that you deem that has value, and it has value over long time periods, I would say. And that value, right, should be something where you can go out to somebody and at least have a conversation, and they see somewhat of a similar value, right? The asset is really kind of, if me and you, we each own different items and we're bartering, right, in the most simplistic way, what can we barter with each other that is of value, right? And whatever we can figure out how to trade, in terms of commerce, that's usually what we would say is an asset. So things that you and those around you would deem as valuable.
Okay, so that's an interesting way of describing an asset, because typically when I think of assets, I'm thinking big picture. Like I'm thinking a
Mm-hmm.
house, I'm thinking a yacht, I'm thinking a business. But what I hear you saying is that anything can be an asset if you and the person that you're bartering with find value in it.
Mm-hmm. I think that like you mentioned the house, there's usually, at least here in America, there's usually like some intrinsic value, right, to at least having the house on a plot of land, right? The idea of American dream is that you own some land and you can build up a house, right? So even if the house isn't there, like that land is worth something, right? And over long periods of time, we see that value going up because land is typically seen as a limited resource.
Hmm.
And so, the more people on the planet that there are, that a resource like that an asset like that will actually gain value over longer periods of time.
So when we're talking about assets, we're talking about them in a couple of ways. Assets that gain value and assets that maybe lose value, like a car. So I go when I buy a car, I drive it off the lot immediately. I start putting miles on that car, and with every mile, the value of the car decreases.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm, that's helpful. Um, when we think about young professionals and we think about attaining assets, um, what are some assets that we should be considering?
That is a great question. I think it would depend on the individual in some cases, but I would say the things that I think, at least myself, that I put a high priority on, being young, right? Fresh out of college, for example, was how do I put myself in positions to learn
Hmm.
as much as I want, right? As much as I need to get to the next level, right? And so I think that is considered an asset in many cases. Just being able to, in some cases, being a young person, you can just like pick up and you can come in and add value. For young people, though, any something that may be a little bit more tangible is the stock market, for example. That's an easy one. The brands that you buy, the brands that you like to eat at or support, the phone brand that you like, because it has the right camera, or the podcast equipment that you as a podcaster use. You can do a little bit of research on these companies and then buy into the stock, right, of that company. And that's going to be considered as an asset over time that, majority of the time that asset should go up, right? Because you touched on there's assets that go up and there's assets that go down. But if a company is able to sustain over time, that asset has a high probability of going up.
Okay. And I love this conversation about knowledge as an asset, because it's so so often it's missing from that conversation. In fact, I didn't think of it until you just said it. But it's very true. I remember getting into the stock market. I was in, I want to say high school, like senior year of high school, maybe freshman year of college, when I first purchased my first stocks. It was in Sprint, which is the cell phone carrier that now has been purchased by T-Mobile, but at the time was Sprint. And then I also got General Electric as well, and I
Mm-hmm.
got a couple of other stocks that no longer exist. But um, a lot of it, I didn't have a roadmap. There's no one in my family, like my parents didn't teach me how to trade in the stock market. Not that they are not knowledgeable about it, but they weren't traders. And so a lot of what I had to do was learn on my own. And so I was looking at a lot of charts, I was reading lots of articles, I was following some of the best traders on the market and learning from them, and learning the strategies for trading. And over time, that knowledge increased to the point where today I can trade pretty confidently. So knowledge as an asset is so important. And I think, even as we're talking about career and we're talking about moving through your career, one of the things I really recommend to young professional is to focus on the tools that you're adding to your tool belt. So
Mm-hmm.
even when it feels like maybe there's no momentum in your career, maybe you feel stuck or stagnant, that's the time to really be thinking about, what kind of skills can I gain during this time? What classes can I take? What else can I learn? What can I learn by just doing and by trying and by putting myself out there? And as you add more of those skills to your tool belt, one, you'll get a better idea of what you enjoy doing, but you will over time begin to develop a strength that will come into that will be very beneficial for you in some future version of yourself. So I love this idea of knowledge as an asset. Thank you. With that being said, I'm trying to find out where in the world you are. So you said it's in a place that gets really cold. I mentioned that it looked like a maple leaf on that basketball court. So I've got to guess that you are in Canada.
No.
We are not in Canada. Okay. Can you give me a clue about this place?
Um, what clue can I give you? Mm, this is this place has. Mm, mm, this place has several major sports teams.
Okay. Several major sports teams, so more than one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's helpful. It's very
Mm-hmm.
helpful. Okay, I'm gonna sit on that. I'll sit on that. All right. It's your turn to guess where in the world I am.
All right. So you said I was close before.
You are. You're
Um.
warm. You're warm.
Yeah, you said I was warm.
You're warm.
Um. um, You also said there was a tip you gave me about short-term rentals, I believe.
I did. I did. So basically, the clue is that at a certain time of year, tourism explodes in this country, to the point where it's the number of tourists that are here are three times more than the actual occupancy, the residents that live there, and that includes short term rentals that tend to go up. They peak during the season.
Mm, how about All right. Is this place? Is it France?
We are not in France. We're not in France. Let me see where we are in relation to France. So you're further
Oh
than
my
you were
gosh.
before. Yes, you are
Okay.
you're much further than you were before. Um, but I can give you a clue about this place. It boasts 183 miles of sparkling coastline that features towering mountains and stunning fjords.
Okay. I think I know it on my next guess. It's got to be one.
Okay, all right. Well, um, on to the next question. We talked a little bit about knowledge. We talked about gaining knowledge. Knowledge is an asset. What are some skills young professionals should look to develop if they want to begin investing?
Um, I think gathering feedback is a really important one. Like knowing how to ask a limited number of questions to get the minimal amount of detail that you need to make a decision. If that makes sense, I think that's a really important skill. No surprise, my background's in analytics and mathematics, so of course I would say something like that. But just being able to, there's so much information that is thrown at everyone, no matter your age. If a 2 year old all the way to someone who's 100, there's so much information every single day. If you're on social media, if you're watching TV, if you're listening to the radio, there's all these different cues of data that are coming at you. But we don't need all that information in order to make a decision. And so just figuring out the minimal amount of data you need to make a decision. It seems like something so basic and simple, but I think that will definitely help out the younger, somebody who's coming up and just starting their career, or someone who's trying to move to that next level in their career for sure.
So efficient decision making. Can you talk a little bit more about like why that skill specifically, and then also like how do I go about learning how to make faster, better decisions?
Got it. Great question. So you mentioned stocks, for example. Like if you just go to any company and try to, buy a stock, there's thousands of options, right? And so being able to ask a few questions in that case to kind of narrow down your choice will I'll give you the ability to say, come in, and if you're starting out, put your 10, 20, $50 down and kind of build from there. Versus if you kind of get lost in the sauce, if you want to call it that. There's so much out there. There's so much information at your fingertips now. You have the ability to trade any stock across um, any big market, right? So you could do something here in the States. We have a couple options here, like the Nasdaq and S&P. But then you're also going to have, other options in Europe and Asia, or even Africa at your disposal. And so if you start really broad, it's going to be hard for you to narrow down. So you got to ask a couple questions. What verticals do you want to invest in? One that I like to ask, I think I touched on it earlier, is what kind of products do you enjoy yourself? And then start to look at those companies that you use every day, from the bottles of water that we drink to the apps that we use. A lot of times there's a publicly traded company behind that you can potentially invest in.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I think a big part of that too is just having a process for how you make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about this in terms of trading too, and you touched on this. There are multiple types of trading that you can do. There are different markets that you trade within. There are different caps of stocks, right? So you have large cap stocks, you have mid cap stocks, and you have small cap stocks, and that's dependent on the size of that the that's dependent on the size of that stock and how much money there is to trade within that stock. And then you have how you like to trade. So you could trade long-term investments. You can do midterm investments, which is shorter, swing trading, which is over a few months, or you could do day trading, which is literally trading multiple times a day within a span of a few minutes. And yes, when you say being able to make decisions quickly and efficiently, that's super important if you are a day trader. But because there's so many different options, and even when we talk about real estate, right? You have where you purchase real estate, you have the value of the home that you're purchasing. You can buy a single, you can buy a two flat, you can buy a duplex, you could buy a building, you could buy commercial properties. There's so much. And I think it really comes down to really sitting with yourself, getting to understand what you want out of life. Like what do you want to achieve? What do you want to accomplish? What goals do you have? What how do you want your portfolio, your investment portfolio to look, and then creating some kind of strategy or system for yourself about how you manage your investment or how you make decisions. Because that is going to be really, really important because investing isn't all about buying, it's also about selling. And so you want to have a system for how you know when you buy, you want to have a system for how to know when to sell. And I think that's a skill that's helpful, not just within investing, but also within just life in general, right? Like if
Mm-hmm.
I get a job, um, I want to know when it's time to cut ties and maybe move on to something else. Or I want to know if I have an option between two different seemingly really great job opportunities and I have to choose one. I need a system for how I make that decision. I need to understand what's important to me. And a lot of this, guys, you learn this over time, right? After, trying things and finding out maybe that wasn't for me, or maybe I didn't like that. But really trusting your gut and revisiting your personal system for how you make decisions. So I think that's really great advice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you touched on the idea of a portfolio. Portfolios are usually built over time, and so any portfolio of investments that you end up accumulating, like you got to have that one starting point. Don't you're not going to, in most cases, be able to kind of boil the ocean, right? And just come in and you have this full portfolio of stocks and investment properties and all these different asset types. You really got to start from day one, learn a little bit, and build from there. So that called a portfolio. I always think of long term. How can I build something out? Whether it be real estate, like you said, or stocks. Like there's a longer game at play. This isn't something that you typically are going to be able to build in a day. I do know that there's folks out there who are willing to put their money into riskier investments, and so it can happen, but the likelihood of that is less likely for sure.
Yeah, definitely investing, I would say, is a long game. And the more patient that you can be, the better your returns are.
Hmm.
If you're looking for kind of get rich quick schemes and trying to make as much money as you can quickly, it could happen, right? Like, I don't know if you're watching GameStop, but when that happened, like there are lots of people who made tons of money overnight but then lost it all because they didn't have a system for how they sell.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's being disciplined in a lot of ways, but also being patient and allowing that process to occur and kind of going at your own pace. Yeah, awesome. Well, we're not in Canada, but you did give me some clues about this place that tells me you're absolutely in the United States. And this place has several sports teams. Now, multiple states have several sports teams, but there are a couple states that have more sports teams than others. So I know California has lots of sports teams. They have the Clippers, they have the Warriors, they have the Lakers, they have the Dodgers. But you said this is a place that gets cold and it's cold for most time of the year. So I'm going to venture to guess that we are not on the West Coast, that we are likely somewhere on the East Coast or somewhere in the like Atlantic North, uh, North, Midwest, North area. So unfortunately, I am not as familiar with sports teams on the East Coast. And when you say they have many sports teams, many sports teams. I'm going to venture to guess that means that there's definitely more than 5 major sports teams. So, maybe.
I'm counting. I'm counting.
um, are you on the East Coast?
Yes.
Okay, that's helpful. Can you give me another clue about this place?
What is another clue? Um, Another clue. Mm, 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 mm. Another clue.
Is this a place that is personal for you? You've been here before.
Oh, that's a good one. I have been here before.
Okay.
And I've had amazing experiences going to this place every single time as a
Okay.
kid.
All right. I'll take it. I'll take it. It is your turn to guess where in the world I am.
All right. So um said it has a lot of coast. So it can only be how many miles of coast did you say?
It has, let me get the number so that I quote it correctly, 183 miles.
That doesn't make me feel good. Hmm, it's just it only has 180. Okay, so would this be? No, I don't think that's it. You said it's the other way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Is it? Is this place? Can I get a clue?
Sure, I'll give you a clue. This is actually a really good one. Um, Property prices in this area vary. But on average, things are extremely affordable. The average price per square meter is about 2,500 euros, which translates to about 2,667 US dollars.
Okay. So you said it's affordable.
Mhm.
How about? I can't be there. Mm, is this place? Is this Greece?
We are not in Greece. We are north of Greece, but you
What?
are, yeah. But you already guessed Greece a little bit. You said Cyprus, which is a little south of Greece.
We're north? Okay, okay. I think I got it.
We are. All right. Well, next question. Um, oh, thanks, Dan. Dan dropped in the chat. Yeah, same
What's up,
thing.
Dan?
What's up, Dan? Yeah, when I see your posts and I see you go live, FYI, just for everyone, me and Dan Roth kind of go way back to, I think it was like during COVID when so many people were leaving. I had taken my business full time, and we were both in the area of developing young professionals. And Dan was one of my biggest cheerleaders. If you check out Dan's profile, has a massive following and gives really, really great advice to young professionals who are looking to advance in their careers. And so, thank you, Dan, for dropping in the chat. Cool. Well, we're going to move on to our next question. Can you talk about the first investment you made as a young professional? What was the investment? Why did you choose to invest? And what was the outcome of that investment?
The first investment I made as a young professional would probably have to be my degree aside. I will say once I got my first job, it's probably just my company 401k. That's probably the easiest. I think at the time, my first job, I think their match was like maybe 3% or somewhere in that range. So they matched up to 3%. And so I just looked at it as free money. I can't remember the company we managed it through, but I think whatever financial institution it was, I just ended up picking their generic index fund, which was like, I don't know when I'll retire, probably like 2060 or something like that. And so that was probably my first investment. I just saw it as taking free money from my company, right? And so just leveraging that as a way to invest some money while making sure that I get a little bit extra from the company, my employer.
Yeah, I appreciate that you said your 401k, because a lot of times when we think of investments, we think it has to be something big and lofty or something
Yeah.
like the stock market, but it can literally be investing in your 401k and
Mm-hmm.
just putting aside the 3-5% match that your employer offers you and setting it and forgetting it. And so, most of us, if we actually look, likely have some kind of investment if you're investing in a 401k.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a lot of companies will give you life insurance as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, making sure you choose your life insurance package while you're there. Of course, once you leave, you can't take that with you, but it's a good way to begin the process of thinking about what does life insurance look like for you and for your legacy. So awesome. Cool. All right. Well, you are on the East Coast. I've been wanting to guess that you are in New York for a while. Um, are you in New York?
Correct.
Am I guessing specifically where you are in New York?
I don't know if you'll get that, but
Okay.
you
Are
can.
you in the hood?
I don't think it's I wouldn't say it's the
You
hood.
wouldn't say it's
No.
the hood? Okay.
Yeah. I can
All
give
right.
you a tip if you want.
Sure. Sure.
So, uh, the best basketball players in the world have played here
Oh.
consistently over time.
Oh. Oh, that's cool. Okay. So you are in the hood. All right. Well, tell me. Okay, so it's your turn to guess where I am.
All right, so you said I'm north, and so that only leaves like like a couple of options. Like I'm at the point now where I had to pull out a map.
Sure.
But you said it only has less than 200 miles of coast. That's what's throwing me off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is this? It can't be that. It can't be because you said it only has 200 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it's in north.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is this Croatia?
We are not in Croatia. You're too far north.
Where
um,
in the world?
I'll give you a clue about this place.
All right, yeah, give me a clue.
We are bordering Croatia, and
Oh, okay.
I'll I'll give you. Yeah, we're bordering Croatia. Let me see if there's another clue that I can offer. Cats. This is really considered a city of cats. There's even a cat museum here. So lots of cats in this place, and yeah,
Okay.
they keep the city really clean. The streets are washed with shampoo twice a day. All right, awesome, cool. Well, let's move on to our next question. What would you say to a young professional who wants to invest, but they're not quite sure where to start, or um, they're looking to invest for the first time? They're not quite sure where to start, or maybe they want to invest, but they're living paycheck to paycheck, and they're like, I don't have enough money to do that.
Okay. Living paycheck to paycheck. First I would definitely say, um, that's hard. That they want to invest in like an asset, you mean?
Yeah, they want to invest in anything,
Mm,
but they're like, I don't have enough money for that. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Or
so they
maybe they
don't
just,
have
go ahead.
they don't have any money to invest, or
That's what
they
they
just want to
think.
start. They want to start where they're at.
They want to start where they're at.
I think a good one to start out. Um, so you can buy the whole market, right, which is SPY, the index. So that's essentially you buying the entire U.S. stock market. Over time, it has gone up pretty much majority of the time. I'm pretty sure there's some instances of severe economic distress where it hasn't. But you can start out on most apps or most of the apps out here or financial platforms with a couple bucks a month, and you'll be in a really great position. I think the earlier you start, the less that you have to do each month, and it really turns into like a snowball going down a mountain. In terms of the analogy, so starting out young, if you're starting out in your 20s, you could just start out a couple bucks a month, and so that you have something that's working for you essentially within the market. And over long periods of time, the U.S. stock market has consistently gone up. There's probably been a handful of times where it has not over a 5 to 10 year period actually gone up. So that'd be something just initially. Um, I would say in terms of investing in yourself, sitting down and just looking at those expenses and just seeing where you can cut is always a good option if you can cut. But just knowing where your money is going, spending that time is a really big piece that for a young investor can help them out in the long term when their portfolio, as you mentioned, grows to a point where they have different types of assets.
Yeah, I love this advice about starting where you are, because a lot of times we have this idea that we don't have enough money, so we can't invest, and we have to wait until we have a lot of money in order to get to start investing. But the reality is what you said earlier: is just contributing to your 401k is an investment, um, or even in the stock market. Like, you don't have to buy 100 shares. You can start with one share.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're investing in crypto, you can buy fractions of shares. And so it's really about my recommendation would be to set aside a little bit of money, whether it's a few dollars a paycheck. I remember when I first started investing, I was setting aside $50 every paycheck. to, or $50 every month to invest. And over time, that grew, and I was able to invest more and more and more. And so, start where you are, and really consider all the options that are within reach for you. So, recently, I wanted to invest in a home, and I wanted to get a condo, and I was denied a loan, right? But that's okay, because now I have a goal. I have something that I can pursue. I have an idea of where I need to be and how I need to get there. And so maybe investing in real estate right now isn't for me, but there are other
Mhm.
types of investments that I can do, like my investing in my business or investing in the stock market. So, really, really great advice. Okay, so I'm going to consult Lord Google on this one, for famous basketball courts in New York. So, um, Red Bull has a list of 5 basketball courts in New York, but they have no photos. So I'm going to have to just kind of guess where you are. Are you at Rucker Park?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
got
it.
on the first shot.
Yeah, that's the. I would say that's probably the most famous of all the courts. I'd be curious to know.
What another one?
If,
Well, it was actually number 5 on the list. So I scrolled all the way down. Um,
oh, I guess they're probably including Madison Square Garden, maybe.
so I'll name the 5. So one is Riverbank State Park.
Okay.
There's Happy Warrior Playground.
Okay.
There's King Dome in
No
Harlem,
Kingdom.
which
Yep.
is Kingdom. Okay, which it's legendary.
Mhm.
The Cage, which is West Fourth Street Courts.
Okay. That's a
Uh-huh.
fair list.
And Rucker Park was number 5.
Hey.
I guess
Hey,
Red
so
Bull.
that is a for me, I used to go there with my dad and my brother.
Hmm.
We would go there and you'd actually be able to see NBA players playing, top high school prospects, just top basketball players, but then the entertainers got involved. And so
Hmm.
I'd see like I think I saw Stephon Marbury, who's a really well-known basketball player. He's been playing in Asia for a while the last couple of years, but he's really an icon in terms of New York basketball. I think that day I saw him and Fat Joe. And
Oh,
so
that's
it was
cool.
like it's a weird, like you'll just randomly see players and entertainers like sitting there talking and just being present for the people who are from the places that they grew up in. And so for me, it was always just a great time, great energy, really competitive. They talked a lot of smack to each other, the players, but it was a really cool place, great energy.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's definitely a unique place to visit. Are you a basketball player? Do you play basketball or in your
No, I
okay.
do not. But I've just been a fan of it my whole life. Tons of basketball players in my family.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's just something as we're playing sports and just being able to see somebody that maybe on an NBA court on the TV, you could go to this park and potentially see them play. It's like a experience like I wouldn't trade that for the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're in the middle of NBA season. I am curious as to who your team is. Like, who are you rooting for?
In terms of all sports, I am a Charlotte fan, so I
Yeah.
wish you could play the song, the little noise, because our sports are not good right now. Um, but yes, I am a Charlotte fan across all the major sports that we have here, mainly basketball and football. We are just going through a not so good run right now, but we will get better.
It's all good. We have those moments. I was a Cubs fan, or I've been a Cubs fan for a really long time, and there was a 100-year stretch where we just had
You know?
no go, and then the curse was broken, and the city went wild. So sometimes
Mhm.
those are the best ones when you have an underdog. It's been a while, and they come out on top.
Yeah, I think when we win our first one across either football or basketball, like it'll really, like you said, it'll just be like, yes, we
Yeah,
finally did it.
we made it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I have a couple more questions for you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. I want to get your, or actually, before I do that, it's your turn to actually guess where I am. Sorry.
All right. I went and did what you did.
Okay. Okay.
Um I put in your yeah, so I had to look up, there's a list of really small countries I'm learning going through
Okay.
this process. So thanks for the
Okay.
education lesson. But is this Montenegro?
We are in Montenegro. Yes, we are. Um, so we are in Montenegro. Specifically, this is Kotor Bay, which is a deep, craggy inlet of the Adriatic Sea. And Montenegro is considered one of the best place to invest in real estate.
Interesting.
Yeah. Property prices, we talked a little bit about, is about 2,500 euros per square meter. That's, they're 3 feet in a meter. So you can do your own math. And yeah, it's obviously it's a beautiful place. And you can buy property here for as little as 120,000 euros. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm gonna add it to my list of places to go to.
Yeah, I hadn't really considered Montenegro before, and then I started seeing some photos about the place, and it's definitely somewhere that I'd love to visit. Cool. All right, so here's a statistic from GitNux. Around 61% of millennials started investing before turning 24. 12% of millennials responded that real estate is their preferred investment strategy for the long term, and only 30% of millennials feel confident in their ability to invest. What are your thoughts on these statistics?
What was that last at?
Only 30% of millennials feel confident in their ability to invest.
Yeah, I think that I definitely I understand that. Me being a millennial myself, I think just the types of debt that we've accumulated in terms of student loan debt, and even there's some new um, types of credit products that are out there. The buy now pay later
Mhm.
industry. So there's definitely I can definitely understand why there's a little bit of hesitancy in terms of feeling comfortable about how our scores are um, compared to past generations. I know things like housing and just housing, for example, is an area where the stats have also shown that millennials are buying houses just at a later stage than before. So I think a lot goes into that. We're starting families a little bit later as well. Some of us have probably been in school for close to 10 years, getting multiple degrees. And so figuring out the career takes some time as well. Um, for whatever reason, I can't put my hand on it, but I think the millennials and then the generation before us, the conversations on finances were few and far between. And so I think that is like the financial education piece, just making sure people understand, the basic terms, how credit works, what your credit score is comprised of. These are things that we learned after graduating college in a lot of cases, probably well into our 20s, that others would have had the experience with. I can think back to my mom telling me that her and my aunts were able to get a credit card in high school, right?
Mm.
And so think about that. They were able to at least have an interaction with credit in a lot of cases versus for us, there have been restrictions and regulations put on specifically targeting a younger demographic like that. And so some of it's the laws and regulations, but for whatever reason, there was a lack of conversations in certain households for us growing up, where we had to figure things out, when we were into our 20s. And first, in certain cases, that can be like a holy crap moment, where you have these credit card companies and folks reaching out to you saying you owe them money when you haven't necessarily figured out how you're going to make a living.
Yeah, I mean, you make really great points. Finances was definitely a conversation I had in my household. My parents were very transparent about their household income. Um, I understood how to save. That my parents opened up a savings account for me when I was very young, and would take me periodically to the bank to deposit some of my allowance that I got from my chores and jobs that I had. And I had a small fund, coming out of high school, that I was able to put towards books for my college, for freshman year of college. And so
Mm-hmm.
I understood the um how savings worked, but I had never touched a credit card before. And so I didn't actually get my first credit card until I had graduated from college. And the only reason why I got a credit card was because I wanted to rent a car. And in order for me to rent a car, I had to have a credit card. So I ended up
Mm-hmm.
opening up a credit card so that I could rent this car, so that I could drive cross country. That was during my move from Chicago to California the first time. And yeah, and then over time, I definitely struggled with some credit card debt. Um, and then I eventually paid it off, and it's a constant fluctuation, but definitely, having the conversations I think are helpful. But in all reality, it's not until you like get that credit card and you start using it that
Mm-hmm.
you really understand what the risks are. But I think it really is about um kind of making some decisions about how you want your finances to look early on. I knew I didn't want a lot of credit card debt. Um, but because I had student loans, and I had, you know, high rent, I was living in LA, it almost felt like I couldn't really avoid putting things on a credit card. Like I had
Mm-hmm.
to in order to make ends meet. And that drove me deeper and deeper in credit card debt. But I knew I didn't want to stay there. And I always had this plan or this idea to get out of credit card debt. And that's eventually what led me to be able to actually pay off my credit cards. So um, I would say that it's so important, if you can, to really maintain that credit score.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it can open up lots of doors for you, but also it can be one of the things that keep you from being able to move forward with the investments that you really do want to make. Um, and it's not impossible to clean up your credit, but it's just
Yeah.
maybe a little bit harder
Mm-hmm.
once you've got a few nicks on your credit report. So thanks for sharing that and sharing your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and one
We're
thing, just one
Sure.
final thing, just in my experience, again, looking at the data, offering credit products from auto loans to credit cards, you name it, financing for just different things. One of the things that I think is important for people to realize is that, if you don't have a relationship with credit, right, and if you've never taken out credit, if you have no forms of credit cards and things like that, many financial institutions, they'll call you a thin file, right? Is essentially someone who doesn't have enough credit history in order for them to have an adequate score, or just there's no behaviors to go off of. And so what happens a lot of times is the financial institution has to fill in the blank and make some assumptions about how you're going to perform. And so no surprise, you'll end up getting credit offers that are higher interest rate offers, and it'll just set you down a path where you're not set up for success because you may not have the optimal credit product that you need for yourself at that time. And so starting early is not a bad thing. Starting out with that credit card, like you mentioned, where you only got a $500 credit line, right? Something that's good. It may not seem like a lot, but you're building that history. You're building that track record that the banks need to see over time. Credit history is a big part of what drives our credit scores. And so you have to have that history, right, in order to have a good score, right? It's very rare that you see somebody coming in who has had very little credit in the past come in with a really high score, unless their parents did something like putting them on a credit card as an authorized user or something like that. And then in that case, you have informed parents that are helping you, right? So just starting often and early and often, having those conversations, knowing what your score is, not being ashamed of it, like you said, Claire, will really set you up for success, because it's a long game with credit. You're going to use credit your entire life, guaranteed.
Yeah. So we don't have to fear it, but be intentional.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Kenny, we're at the part of our show where we ask the final question of the night, and it's the question we ask all of our guests. And that is, how would you describe success?
Success for me is that is a great question. Success for me is, um, you being able to, add value the way that you feel you can best do it. And so for me, for example, at this point in my life, it's making sure that I'm able to, work and provide for my family, but then also be in a position where I have flexibility to do things with my wife and my daughter, such as going to the park, traveling, just experiencing different things with them. And so success for me is just really you being able to do, add the value that you want to, where you feel like you can best serve those around you. And I understand it takes some time to figure out that in a lot of cases, but once you figure it out, it definitely will be worth it. And one of my sayings that I always go by is, investing in yourself, you cannot lose. And I really believe that how you invest in yourself, whether it be monetary assets or just your hunger for knowledge, it'll definitely put you in a position of being successful in the future. And so that's on one of my sayings, but just, in general, being successful for me at this point, I just wanted to share a little bit about how I think about it.
Thank you so much, Kenny, for coming on the show and for adding that valuable perspective. With that, we are going to end the night. But before we do, can you tell our listeners about what you've got coming up? And if they want to reach out, where can they find you? Where can they learn more about you and Beyond Normal Media? Because you got podcasts.
Yep, got it. Appreciate that. Thanks for allowing me to plug what I work on. And so I work on the Beyond Normal podcast, where we primarily focus on highlighting Black founders. So please check us out. We're on all major streaming platforms and YouTube as well. And so Beyond Normal podcast, you can check us out there. I am active on LinkedIn. Just search for me, Kenneth Groom, and you will be able to find me there as well. Always a quick DM away or email away, but definitely looking forward to having conversations with Clary's audience here, and just folks who want to tap in and just connect and just share perspectives and experiences. Definitely looking forward to any follow up that comes from this great conversation we had here.
And could you remind us what it's beyondnormalpodcast.com? What's the URL?
Oh, great. Thanks for keeping me on my toes. You can find us at beyondnormalmedia.com. If you search for us on Beyond Normal Media on Google, we should be the first couple options, I believe. But yeah, just beyondnormalmedia.com is a quick way for you to tap in with all our episodes and just the amazing founders that we highlight on each of our episodes. Beyondnormalmedia.com. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, Kenny, it was a pleasure having you on the show. This has been a long time coming, and it's bittersweet because this is the final episode of the season. But we will be back with season 3, where we're going to bring on more awesome founders and young professionals who will share their experience with you. For now, it's been a great one. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, for all of your support. And I look forward to joining you here again in a few months. All right. Thanks, Kenny. Peace.